Principle of synchronicity. Cycles of neighboring lengths will have troughs that occur simultaneously whenever possible. Understanding this synchronicity is a key aspect of trading market cycles. Key aspects. A cycle trough will coincide with cycle troughs of all smaller cycles. This relationship does not work in reverse. A cycle trough does not necessarily coincide with troughs of all larger cycles. This third principle of synchronicity may sound like a mouthful, but actually it's quite simple once you understand it. Cycles are lined up at the bottom. This is what I always like to say. All cycles are lined up at the bottom, and I love this term, whenever possible. It's not always possible to line up a cycle at the bottom. Let me show you what that means with an example. So this is the summation of all three cycles that I've been showing you so far in this lesson. If you remember, this was made out of 20, 40, and 80 days added together. Take a look at this green horizontal line. You see that all three cycles, all these bottoms are lined up? That is not randomly picked. This is actually how it works. The lows line up whenever possible. What does that mean? Let's start with this smaller cycle component. So this one will bottom out every 20 days. The one above, cycle 2, will bottom out every 40 days. It is not possible for the 40-day cycle to make a low whenever the 20-day cycle is making a low. Why? Okay, let's say we start with this low. It coincides with this low, again, because they're lined up. But the next low in this cycle cannot coincide with the low in the next cycle, right? It's not possible. Why? Because 20 days from the low, you're going to have a high in a 40-day cycle. But 20 days from the low in a 20-day cycle, we're going to have another low. Now, this is what this means, whenever possible. Now, the rule that I want you to take away is, when the large cycle is bottoming out, all the smaller cycles are bottoming out as well. Let's take this 80-day cycle. When this one makes a low, this one makes a low. And also this one makes a low, right? This is what this principle of synchronicity means. When a large cycle makes a low, all the smaller cycles also make a low. I also said this relationship does not work in reverse. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that when the small cycle, the 20-day cycle, makes a low, the larger cycles, they're not necessarily making lows. Now you can use this to your advantage in trading. Why? Because you know that when you're getting close, let's say the market is falling here, and you're getting close to this low, okay? You know that when all the cycles are lined up, and this is actually one of the best trading strategies that you can employ using cycles, is that you know that when you're approaching the low on this larger cycle, you no longer have to study this cycle. You can actually zoom in to the smaller component. So you know that when this large cycle is making a low, you can go to the smallest cycle you track. And when this one makes a low, you can apply the principle of synchronicity to say, if this was making a low, this was making a low, therefore this one is making a low. So once you have confirmation that this cycle, this little tiny cycle, has bottomed out and started moving higher, and also these two are moving higher, you can buy the market. I'm going to show you how to do this in future lessons, but this is what this principle of synchronicity means. It means that when a large cycle is bottoming out, the smaller cycles are also bottoming out. But very, very important. It does not work in reverse. Make sure you understand this principle well. Okay, so this is why I highlighted these two key aspects. A cycle trough will coincide with cycle troughs of smaller cycles. Relationship does not work in reverse. Cycle trough does not necessarily coincide with troughs of all larger cycles. Large cycle bottoming out, the smaller ones are bottoming out. Small one bottoming out, the larger ones, you can't say anything about them. Not really. Which is why usually it makes sense as a cycles analyst to start with the larger cycle and then drill down to the smaller components to find that alignment, to find when this big one is going to make it slow, because you know all the smaller ones will make a low as well. That is the principle of synchronicity.